Hello and welcome to the Really Wild Show. And just look at that creature there. It's a red-legged Syriama and it's a first on the Really Wild Show.
And I'll be telling you about some ant wars. That doesn't sound very exciting because they're very small, but it's very interesting actually.
And I'll be hosting our very own Really Wild Show Taste Tester.
Yeah.
Say kid.
Whipsnade, there's an animal that's the nearest living thing to a dinosaur. Or so Terry tells me, but I can't seem to find it anywhere. Apparently, this creature has survived for millions of years, and in all that time, its body shape has hardly changed at all. So I guess I should look out for something pretty prehistoric. Terry also told me that these animals live in water and on land. They're carnivores and they're known to attack up to 2,000 people a year. Hang on a minute, there's something pretty fishy going on round here.
More reptile-y actually, Michaela, and here we've got the real thing. These are American alligators, and although they move on land as fast as a man can walk, they actually are very dangerous. They can grow to lengths of up to 4 metres, and also they can reach ages of up to 50 years. Quite incredible, eh?
Yeah, they are fabulous animals, aren't they? These ones were hatched in 1983, so they're not very big, and when they're small, they feed mainly on insects. I guess you could say these guys were teenagers now, and already their jaws are snapping around small mammals and small birds. But take a look at this, because this is a tooth that's come out of another alligator. Fancy one of those in your leg?
No, not really, Chris.
Not really.
Oh, very funny. Is there anyone in there? Hello? Oh, hiya. Are there some more people there?
Yes!
There's quite a few of you by the looks of it. What type of alligator are you?
We're a rare type of alligator and we come from Reading High Junior School.
Well, it's pretty rare then, isn't it? What are you doing here?
We've come to show you how to walk like an alligator.
Well, if you're going to do that, we'd better put this down. Are you all right in the back there?
Yes!
All right, 1, 2, 3, go!
1, 2,
All reptiles move in exactly the same way, and it's completely different than all other four-legged animals. They use a diagonal technique, and by that I mean that they move their front leg on one side at exactly the same time as they move their rear leg on the other side. Then they swap sides and they move the next front leg and the next rear leg.
But what is odd is why their legs are so short. It would make much better sense to support their weight on stronger, straighter legs, like some of the land animals, like the rhino or the horse, and then they could gallop or even trot away.
Having said that, their legs have been like this for nearly 200 million years, so they must be doing the trick. Now, having short legs could be a benefit when they're tucked into their bodies and swimming underwater to make them more streamlined, but it's much more likely that it's because these animals hunt in shallow, muddy water and they need to scuttle through that to grab their prey. Now, once they've grabbed it, it's absolutely gruesome. What they do is take it to the deeper water, submerge with it, locked in the jaws, and then spin round and round until all the limbs come off and everything. I mean, what a way to go, eh, Michaela?
Well, that sounds absolutely gruesome. I think you can stay with the two real ones. I'm going to stay with this friendly old thing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Now, what, you might ask, am I doing here dressed in this chainmail? Well, I'm actually going to tell you a story about ants, and what better place to tell you a story about ants than in a castle. It's actually a story about two species of ants. One group known as the Amazons, and the other, a type of formica ant known as Fusca. A long time ago, in a magnificent castle, there once lived a great queen. She was known as Queen Fusca. She was a productive queen, her workers fed her and her consorts attended her. She spent each day laying eggs which were reared in her brood chambers. Each member of her colony knew exactly what to do and went about their daily duties happily and efficiently. But the peaceful life of the Formicas was soon to be shattered. In a dingy den not far away lurked the Amazons. These were, relatively speaking, a scruffy bunch of individuals, real bandits whose one aim in life was robbery with violence. Unable to feed themselves, this group of parasites enslaved Formicas to do their work. Often the slaves worked so hard for their masters that they would drop with fatigue and die. And when this happened, a scout would be sent off to locate another Formica colony to raid and capture. The scout knew that Queen Fushka's castle held rich pickings for him and his companions. Unseen by the fortress workers, the scout stole into the colony. Inside the Queen's brood chamber was the booty for which he searched, and to provide the proof of the sortie that he needed, he picked up a pupae to take home. Back at their den, fellow Amazons were excited by the find, and they examined it closely. They decided to mount an immediate attack, and led by the scout, set out in small groups to invade Queen Fushka's castle. The Formicas did everything they could to fight off the fearsome onslaught. They were powerless to resist the Amazons' lethal chemical weapon, a substance so powerful that the defenders ignored the attack and turned on each other instead. Already alerted to the danger, Queen Formica gathered together her court and fled to safety. Once inside the castle, the Amazons were free to plunder the Queen's stash of living treasure and then make their escape. Back at their stronghold, the spoils of war were scattered for the unfortunate Formica slaves to tend, and again turn their young into a future supply of servants. In the aftermath of the battle, Queen Fushka and her courtiers returned to pick up the pieces of their once serene lives, but in the knowledge that one day the Amazons would return. Swashbuckling stuff, eh? And remember, all of that was about ants.
We've had a letter from Ben Mallard from Shropshire who wants to know, why do lizards and snakes have forked tongues?
Well, I'm giving a chooky back here to an African Nile monitor lizard, and he smells using that tongue. What he actually does is stick it out into the air, and it's very sticky, and then he wafts it around, and any little smell particles get stuck onto it. He then draws it back into the roof of his mouth into a special organ called the Jacobson's organ, and in there it can tell him exactly what he's sniffing out with his tongue. The reason it's forked is quite interesting, because if you imagine this is the tongue, this prong on this side catches more smell particles that are coming from this direction, so the lizard can actually tell which direction a smell is coming from by using its forked tongue. It then turns in that direction, and that's how it sniffs out its prey.
Now, monkeys like this rhesus macaque smell more like us. Now, I've got a biscuit in my hand, and it's very keen on getting hold of it. Now, it's got nerve cells up in its nose, and it relies on the scent molecules that food gives off, like this biscuit. Now, just look at that. You got it, and it works.
We humans tend to think that our sense of smell is not as good as most animals, but that's because we wander around with our noses in the air and not sticking them into the places where we should to smell things out. Anyway, now we're going to prove to you that the human sense of smell is not that bad at all.
We've got some volunteers from the Lewis and Watts group for our very own Really Wild Taste Test.
And here are our lovely 5 volunteers. As you can see, they have a nose clip on, that is so they can't smell anything, and very colourful blindfolds on so they can't see anything. And along the table here we have 5 bowls of mushed up food. Some are lovely, some are pretty revolting. Now they've chosen their own seat, so it's their fault if they get the revolting one. First contestant, in it goes. Have a taste of this. See if you can tell me what that is. Any guesses? I'm going to have to hurry you. Yoghurt. Yoghurt! No, wrong. Number 2, let's see what yours is. Let's spoon this in and have a little taste of that. And tell me what you think that is.
Lime juice.
Lime juice? Wrong. Number 3, have a taste of this and see if you can tell me what that is.
Paste.
Paste? Wrong. Number 4, have a little taste of this one and see if you can tell me what that is.
Beetroot.
Beetroot? Wrong. Well, we're doing really well. Number 5, let's have a taste of this. Any ideas what that might be, number 5?
Custard.
Custard! You're all wrong. At the end of round 1, we have 0 points.
Well, it seems that our sense of taste is pretty poor. Even the nasty one wasn't spotted well. Let's see what's going to happen now they've taken their nose clips off. There we go.
Contestant number 1, are you ready for this? In we go with another taste of this. For our audience, that is what it is. Any guesses? Apple. Apple, yes! Number 2, if you'd like to have another taste of this. For our audience, that is what number 2 is. Any guesses? Orange. Orange, yes! For number 3, have a little taste of that. See if you can find out what that is. For our audience, that is what it is. Cheese. Cheese, yes! For number 4 here, have a taste of this yummy stuff. For our audience, that is what it is. What's that?
Onion.
Onion, yes! And for number 5, have a little taste of this one. And for our audience, that is what it is. Any guesses?
Fish.
Fish. What type of fish?
What's it called?
Take your blindfold off. I'm afraid you sat in a dodgy seat. That was jellied eel. So at the end of round 2, we had 4, and I'd say 4.5 people got it right. Woo!
There we are. That just goes to prove we do have a good sense of smell, but when we're allowed to use it. And we used it most when we're actually tasting. But then you see, tasting is smelling.
And the animal world has certainly evolved some good hooters and sniffers.
Now we're going to the south of France, to a secret woodland where we're going to stage the first ever smelling competition between a space-age invention and a pig.
This is Minnie. She's an extremely valuable sow. Not just because she's so enormous, but she's an excellent sniffer. In fact, all pigs have a very good sense of smell, but Minnie here has one of the best. What do you want? Minnie is 2 years old, and her amazing sense of smell has saved this enormous piggy from going to market. At home, she's looked after like a princess. She's more valuable to her owner, the farmer, than his car. So, what's her secret? It's these. They're truffles, and they're one of the most prized and expensive delicacies in the whole of Europe. A handful of this fungus can cost up to £100 on the French market. But finding them can take hours, and it's a very skilled job. Not a job for the delicate noses of French chefs, restaurateurs, and certainly not me. It's a job for the snout of Minnie. Well, it has been up until now, but in here, she may just have found her match.
Dr. Passard, a scientist from Manchester University, in conjunction with the Polytechnic of Toulouse in France, has invented a machine which they claim can out-sniff a pig at finding truffles. Inside this microchip are 20 sensors, each receptive to a different odour. And Dr. Passard has programmed the detector to recognise the different chemical odours of a truffle.
So, Dr. Passard, would you in fact say that you've invented an electronic pig's nose?
Yes, I think so. Except it's not as sensitive as a pig's nose.
Well, shall we try it out? I'm going to set you a challenge against one of the best sniffers in France. Do you accept?
Yes, certainly.
Wonderful. Off to the woods. Minnie is an old hand at this, but it will be the first time Dr. Passard has tried out his invention in the truffle woods. We'd like to meet each other.
Hello.
It's a race against time. The one that finds the most truffles wins. On your marks, get set, go! But pigs aren't as stupid
stupid as people think. They're actually very intelligent animals, and they certainly have a much more acute sense of smell than we do. It has a very highly developed smell centre in its brain, and up there in its nose it has an area the size of a handkerchief for trapping odours. Man's is only the size of a postage stamp. Just look at that snout. It's designed to get as close to the source of smell as possible. The tip is very sensitive and is excellent for rooting out food from the soil. In fact, she's a bit too good. The problem is, when she finds one, she tries to eat it. And poor old Mr. Mollier, the farmer here, has quite a job getting it off her. Well done. I'll go and see how Dr. Prasad is getting on. The advantages Dr. Prasad's invention has over Minnie, apart from not eating the truffles when it's found them, are pigs miss 20% of the truffles in the field, and also tend to get bored after about an hour, whereas the machine can go on all day. But even with all our modern-day technology, the machine is only 1/5 as sensitive as a pig's nose. Dr. Prasad, how have you done so far?
Oh, I've done quite well. I've got 3 so far.
That's pretty good. Do you think it'll be successful then?
I certainly hope so. It's going to be a big help to the truffle market.
Well, Minnie's not worried about the market. She has her own reasons for sniffing out the truffles. When a male pig, a boar, wants to mate, it gives off a strong smell with its saliva, which the female pig, the sow, is attracted to. Now, the truffle, when it's ripe, gives off this exact same odour. So Minnie here thinks she's chasing a boar to mate with. She also rather likes the taste of truffles. But do you know, I think the cleverest thing in all this is the truffle itself. You see, it has a very good reason for wanting to imitate the smell of the pig. You see, it wants to be found and dug up because when it's dug up, it releases its spores into the wind and they float away and set up new colonies of truffles elsewhere. Right, time's up. Come on in, let's see who's won. Dr. Prasad, how many have you got?
I got 6 here.
Well, that's pretty good. Your machine obviously works. And what about Minnie here? Wow, about 20! Brilliant! And you would have got far more if you hadn't eaten them all, wouldn't you? So, although this little piggy didn't find its mate, this little piggy won't be going to its market. This little piggy will be safe to stay at home. And I think, as a reward, we should give it one more little morsel. Promise? There you go, you can have it.
Now, we had this letter from Neil Gates, and he wants to see a very secretive bird. Well, there is one, and it's very shy and very elusive, and even some of our best bird spotters haven't seen it. And it lives just up there in Scotland. Well, this is Neil Gates, and he is a first-rate twitcher. In other words, he absolutely adores birds, don't you, Neil?
Yeah.
Now, his best wish of all is to see a capercaillie. He's been to Scotland before, and he's never seen a capercaillie. He's looked everywhere. And we've come to this very secret place here on Speyside to join this group of people that are actually going to track down capercaillie today. The capercaillie is incredibly rare. There are only a few thousand left, perhaps only a few hundred, in a handful of small sites. But every year, these dedicated volunteers band together to help it. By combing the forest counting capercaillie, they hope that scientists will discover why it's declining. While they headed off, we found a good spot to see any that might fly over. Well, I'll tell you what, Neil, this really is a magnificent spot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Now, you know something? People used to come here to take shots at cappers, you know, at capercaillies. Nowadays, it's only twitchers like you, if you don't mind being called twitchers, bird lovers like you, that actually come here to get photographs of them and to see them, you know?
It's good.
So, I'll tell you what, this is a good spot for us to set up. If we,
Yeah, it looks
if we
good.
set your telescope up there, we can look over that way, can't we?
Yeah.
The volunteers marched through the forest in a line, forcing the birds to fly up into the air. So it wasn't long before we saw our first capper. Look, over there on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Have you got it?
Yeah.
Wow. I think that was a male, that one,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
looked like a male.
It looked like a male. They're very agile, you know. I mean, they can
Yeah.
manoeuvre through those trees without any problem at all, can't they?
Yeah, for a big
And
bird like that.
For a big bird, and yeah, and they fly quite fast as well,
Yeah.
don't they? And
Isn't that
over there
one?
as well. That's two. That's two. There we go. That's a hen, isn't it?
Yeah.
And another one up there.
There's
Look,
another one.
look at those wing flaps. You know, they flap very
Yeah.
fast for a while, and then they actually glide, don't they?
Yeah.
That saves a lot of energy, doesn't it?
2 hours later, the volunteers had finished their section of the forest. It was an encouraging count.
Well, Neil, I guess we must have had, what, about 15 birds?
Yeah, about 15.
15 birds altogether?
Yep.
But not really as close as you'd like to see them.
No, not quite as close as I like to see.
We left the volunteers to their well-earned meal and headed even further north for the second part of our bargain with Neil, to let him see a kappa close up. Capercaillies once lived in forests all over Scotland, but there are very few areas left of the old pine forest that they like. However, there is a very secret area of forest where there are still capercaillies to be found. Here they're being bred in captivity and protected even after they are released. Neil and I were sworn to keep this location secret before being allowed to see them close up.
Here we are, Neil.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but the Really Wild Show can do many things, but it can't control the weather. Now, take it very easy.
Oh, wow, look at them.
This is it. This is the closest you've ever been to a capercaillie, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday you saw them in flight, didn't you?
Yeah. They're much better from the ground, though. You can
Much
see
better
all
from the ground.
Details, yeah.
Are they as big as you thought they would be?
They're bigger.
They're bigger?
Even off it, they would be, yeah.
So you recognise the difference between the two? There's the female up
Yeah.
there, the hen up there,
And there's the male down there.
and the male
Yeah.
down there.
The male's got really big beak. It's
Got a very powerful
Yeah.
beak, actually. And also, if you look at its feet as well, it's got very big feet and very splayed out,
Yeah.
you know? So that helps them in the winter when they're walking on something like sort of snow, you know, helps displace that weight,
yeah.
because they're pretty heavy birds as well.
I expect so. Big enough.
One of the biggest birds of all,
Yeah.
you know, the land birds.
Well, I've got to say, it was a marvellous trip for both of us to see this great bird. But one thing we never found out was how it got its name. In Gaelic, capercaillie means horse of the forest, but nobody knows exactly why.
Now we've got a bird here that I've certainly never seen before. We don't think it's been on television before, and to be honest, no one really knows that much about it.
It's a real star. It's called a red-legged Seriema, and it comes from South America, and it shows some fabulous behaviour.
Now, I've got a pole behind my back, and on top of that pole is Seriema's favourite food, and I've been hiding it because she's very active. Now, Seriema, come and look at this. Now, just watch this. Wow.
Brilliant.
Now, in the wild, they can do that to get birds and insects. They're tremendous, aren't they?
Yeah, they're great. The reason they've got such long legs is that they live in the pampas, which is very long grass. It covers miles and miles, big plains. And it keeps their head right up above the grass so they can see a real bird's eye view. And also, because they normally chase after things that are quite fast moving, like small reptiles, they need to be able to run quite fast as well. I'm trying to get him to go a bit higher, Terence.
Right, there we go.
See if he will. We should say this isn't a stunt. He hasn't been trained to do this. This is real natural behaviour.
And then have a look at what he does with this. I've got a rubber snake here now. He thinks this is a real snake. And watch how he deals with this after he's eaten that. Okay.
Now, you can see there, he's picked up the snake. He's not been too aggressive with it.
No, he's not.
I expected him to beat it up a bit. No, he's giving it a little bit of mistreatment. And that's to break the back of the animal, because in the wild he would come across snakes which could be quite venomous and might do him some damage if they bit him.
There he goes.
I don't think he's fooled by the rubber snake.
I
actually.
don't think he is he?
But what a way to end a programme, eh? What
I
a
want
star.
my snake back, Chris.
Oh, well.
Go on, go in and get it.
No, I'll get it next week for you. Never mind. Bye.
See you next week. Bye.